everybody, it's Carm here, coming to you on a gorgeous Saturday afternoon. A wonderful day, nice and cool, sunny, perfect spring for me. Yeah, I wanted to come on and do a video that I've been thinking about doing for quite a while, and finally got some stuff together to do it on solo piano music in the collection. And I recently was also having some conversations with Shannon in the comments, talking about instrumental piano music, and Chris Kibler, who shows a great deal of a solo keyboard in general, but a lot of solo piano, which I'm sure he has quite a few of these. I think I've seen him show some of these in the past, and I've got quite a bit here, so this could be a long one. I'll start off with vinyl and then move on to CD. Yeah, I've always been into solo keyboard music in general, but primarily synthesizer. But piano's always been there, and whenever I find something intriguing, I'll pick it up. I'll start off with one of my favorites here from many years ago. Jim Chappell, Tender Ritual. Someone who I may feature further on, in the summer, give him his own feature. But very distinctive player. His chords, he has a kind of a jazzy style, but something about the way he phrases chords, the sequencing of them is really distinctive. And he's a great songsmith, I guess if you could say. You could actually imagine lyrics to the songs, or he has it's almost a pop feel, but very it's accessible, but at times challenging where you're not quite expecting it. Excellent album, and I recommend any of his solo stuff. 1,000 Moods, Jonathan Lee. I found this at a record show a couple of years back. This has a little bit of light synthesizer in the background, but it's primarily solo piano. I'll use the term impressionistic a lot to describe some of these, but quite a few of these, but this definitely fits that bill. I think these are original compositions. It's on the Sonogaya label. A very beautiful, meditative, just perfect for relaxation. This is one I found a few years back. I know Chris is a big fan, Chris Cole, Brother Chris. Mary Watkins, Spirit Song. This is something I hadn't heard of at the time, on Redwood Records from 1985. This is really nice. Again, kind of impressionistic, but also jazzy. A lot of layers to her playing, I find. Each time I hear it, there's new things are revealed in it. Great structure, but also nice improvisation, from what I remember. It's recorded at Different First Studios in San Francisco, where Liz Story's recorded some of her stuff, which I'll get to soon. But yeah, really nice. A lot of these I haven't listened to in quite a while, so I'm kind of going from memory. But I do recommend all of these for what they have to show. Rand Blake, Breakthrough, someone I know I've showed before. An Improvising Artists from 1976. Very distinctive, idiosyncratic jazz piano, kind of fractured or fragmented at times. Very individual, melodic, rhythmic sense. Combination of his own original compositions and some standards. All the Things You Are, You Stepped Out of a Dream, but again done in a very in a way that only he could do them. You don't hear standards being done in quite this way, but a very refreshing take on solo piano. Pretty well-known player here from Narada, Michael Jones, Seascapes. Again, very impressionistic, improvisational. I really like the that he stretches out in his pieces. He's got a Seascapes, the title cut, is over 20 minutes there. He really kind of stretches out and kind of gets the most out of a piece. But I think he started out as a businessman of some kind, and then he was kind of lured by his friends to get more into playing piano and making his own albums, and eventually did, and I think we're the better for it. He makes some beautiful stuff. Still playing today, I believe. One of those old standards that very familiar. George Winston, Autumn. To anyone who's getting into solo piano music for the first time, he's probably someone that has seen this kind of a touchstone, or a way of getting into it, quite easily. Again, very accessible but very distinctive. I still think this is one of his best and most distinctive albums, for my own taste. And of course, my very favorite season, which he does evoke really nicely here, and it's been a long-time favorite. I can't go without showing this one, an all-time standard classic here. Cologne Concert, Keith Jarrett. Very generously gifted to me by Diana from Germany. Hey Diana, if you're watching. Digging in the Crate. And of course I have to show this as well. Those of you who didn't see the video. You've got the standard cover here. And then you have Diana's coffee painting here. Yep, painted with coffee. In every video she features another artist in the background. Very much cherish this. And if you know this album, of course, wonderful long unfurling improvisations, very distinctive sense of narrative. Someone who needs very little introduction, but another person, if you're getting into solo piano music and you're not as familiar with that, this is another good one to find, whether you're into jazz or not. It's a really good intro there. Another old favorite, Stephen Halpern, Rhythms of Vision. He's made a few solo piano albums over the years. Mostly he'll do electric piano or synthesizer, but this is all acoustic piano. Another fellow with a very distinctive style and touch. At times it almost sounds like he's, on the surface, like he's just playing scales, kind of going up and down. The white keys, I guess he uses mostly, but you listen a little deeper and you could tell he's really doing something. When you talk about the mind-body connection of music, he's someone who really understands that, and it's reflected in his music for quite some time. It's a nice solo representation here. Another one I've been a fan of for a long time, and a local artist here, Fred Simon, Short Story. I know Gary's a fan of this one too, and I got to see him live about 15 years ago or so. He opened for Oregon, which is a real treat. This is on Quaver Records out of Evanston, Illinois, which is just north of here, along the lakefront. Primarily solo piano. There's one piece, at least one piece with a little synthesizer, but fantastic stuff. Very beautiful, jazzy. It goes through a lot of different, evocative moods, and someone who's quite distinctive. And I wish he did more of these. He's done a few solo or a few small group albums, but not enough solo stuff. So always happy to play this one. This one is absolutely wonderful, and this is a great gift from brother Chris, John Coltrane 68, Chris Cole. Stars, Tom Ehrlich. This is fantastic. Someone, of course, with so many things we learned from Chris, you hardly even heard of it. He's the master of finding the obscure nuggets. This is very much in kind of a minimalist, for lack of a better term, like Terry Riley, Steve Reich mode of playing. But it has a certain flow to it that's just really, really magical. This is one I actually haven't listened to in a while. I should revisit this real soon. But it just has a certain magic to it. Something about its technique. The balance between technique and emotion is, to me, is perfect here. And one doesn't seem to, override the other, so to speak. But this is excellent. It's probably kind of hard to find, I'm guessing. Not real well known, but very well worth sampling, and very beautiful and hypnotic. Yeah, still got quite a few here on the records. Listening to Evening, Eludin Mathieu, solo piano music. I believe he's a French artist. Another one, very wonderful, impressionistic, maybe kind of like a modern day Debussy in some ways, but also with some jazzy touches. This is one I found not too long ago. In fact, I think I might have been with Chris when I found this, or he may have pointed this out to me. Another one on Sonagaya. I love that cover too, the bird. But, yeah, another one that's quite recommended for just kind of like the pictures it paints. Very much like the cover. Another one I had forgotten about for quite some time. Richard Byrock, Hubris. I first got into him from hearing his trio albums, jazz piano trio albums. But this is an early example of him solo. All original compositions on ECM. Beautiful stuff. Rather short album, but still very nice. Another one I need to revisit. But another player with a very distinctive style, kind of merging classical and jazz in a really neat way. I think I showed this one on CD recently. Fresh Air Interludes from Jackson Berkey, pianist from Mannheim Steamroller. This is a re-recording of the interludes that would come in between the songs of their first 4 albums, going through each season. Very much like the cover, if you could make it out. Kind of misty, moody, melancholy, but perfect for those days. Another really beautiful album here, and I don't think this is very well known outside of local circles. Tom Split, Elan. This is another one on the Quaver Records label, along with Fred Simon. Very beautiful piano here, very kind of wistful and airy, but also jazzy and rhythmic. This one's from recorded in 1983, but very much like the titles there, really it paints a beautiful picture of each. Would highly recommend this if you like solo piano of that kind. Oh, here's another example of this. Now this is another Halpern. This is actually solo electric piano. I just kind of weaved in here, but there's not many of those, solo. I think it's Fender Rhodes. But interesting to listen to this and compare it to the acoustic versions of what he's done. And he's really known for his sound on this instrument. That's just one example of that. Just a few more here on the vinyl. It's quite a bit. Where Angels Dance by Spencer Brewer. He's someone who's pretty well known for these kind of smaller sort of chamber group playing, but this is a early solo piano from 1983. Another one, very beautiful, impressionistic and melodic. Very much like the titles. Very nice for the background or the foreground on Willow Rose Records. And I think he's still around playing. Another old favorite of many years, Liz Story, Speechless. Very much kind of, I'd say like a Bill Evans influenced and inspired piano player, but very much, developed her own style. I'd recommend anything I see by her. I think she's primarily solo piano with a few smaller group albums, but this is a nice one on Novus from 1988. This is an interesting one, a musical seance featuring Rosemary Brown. Something I'm gonna have to look further into in the notes, but basically, interpreting various classical composers. This one's from the early 70s, but pretty nice. I don't have nearly enough solo piano classical albums, just some here and there. Oh, here's another one here. Ruth Laredo playing Rachmaninoff. Another very distinctive composer, and known for very kind of, I don't know if you want to say like fancy, flourishing techniques, but very nice stuff. And the background's perfect for this time of year. Very nice. We've got a few jazz ones here. Dollar Brand, African piano. I might have showed this before. I found this really cheap in our shop a few years back. But he has a very distinctive rhythmic style, bluesy, but also, again, kind of going back to the roots. This one's on Joppo, 1969. Very well worth seeking out if you come across it. This next one's a lot of fun. David Frischberg, Can't Take You Nowhere. Now this is solo piano with some vocals. He sings and writes his own songs. Some of these titles here: My Attorney Bernie, Can't Take You Nowhere, Sweet Kentucky Ham, What Am I Here For? Really a lot of fun. Very whimsical. Yeah, just it's good for lighthearted. You know, if you need a little pick me up, this is a good album for that. And his playing style is really nice. A lot of different schools of jazz piano you could hear here, like stride and bebop. He really runs through all the gamut. So yeah, this is a really fun one. And finally here for the vinyl, last one, Solo Flight by Mark Allen. He's another one who's known for also playing like synthesizer and a lot of Fender Rhodes. This is an example of acoustic piano. Very much like the cover, kind of light and airy, and very pleasant stuff. Some other albums on that label, the Rising Sun Records. So yeah, very nice. And now onto the CDs, of which there are numerous ones here. Yes, this would be, you can tell this is going to be quite an epic. I'll start with what's playing in the background. I don't know if you could hear it, it's pretty windy and noisy in the neighborhood. Sunset on Santa Fe by Robert Strickland. This is something it was turned on to by Gary at Cosmic Pickle in Palin, New Jersey, on the Pro Jazz label. Very diverse album. Goes through a lot of different styles. Some impressionistic, some more jazzy. Some very, very catchy. I was thinking of the term I heard recently, or what do you call it, earworm-like. A lot of that fits in there. But, lovely stuff. Another one by W.A. Matthew, Available Light. This one's on Windham Hill. I think this might be the only one he recorded on there. Kind of along with George Winston, but all along different lines. I really like that cover there. This one was one I revisited fairly recently. Orff Schulwerk, Carl Orff, pianist, composer. Of course, I mainly got this because it was next to nothing, and it was on Celestial Harmonies, which is a label I love. This has almost kind of a nursery rhyme quality to it. Kind of neoclassical, romantic, maybe like Chopin. But the melodies are, very kind of sing-songy and really fun. It'd be good if you're introducing children to classical music. This might be a good thing to, turn them on to. Another Stephen Halpern. Another example of his solo piano, similar to the record I showed. This one has a little additional synthesizer as well. It sounds, and the sounds of the ocean and nature. But, yeah, very nice, very meditative. This next one's absolutely gorgeous. Jordan de la Sierra, Gymnosphere, Song of the Rose. I know this had been shown quite a bit in the VC on vinyl. A great double disc set here. Very much along the lines of someone like Harold Budd or Terry Riley, in that kind of somewhere in between in that vein. Very airy and wistful, maybe even abstract at times, but very atmospheric, almost devotional sounding music. Absolutely love this. Very beautiful. This next one I actually found in a thrift store. Katie Kuhn. To the best of my knowledge, no relation to Steve. Mandalay. Yeah, for like 50 cents or a buck, you couldn't go wrong. Very nice lilting piano here. Very much like the titles. Sounds like it's very personal music to her, and the things she's expressing here, but also whimsical at times. You always neat coming across these for kind of unknown things for next to nothing. Okay, now getting into a box here. I do actually have a little box here. Let's see here. Windham Hill Records piano sampler. I have a variety of players on here, you know, going through the years. See the various names there. And some of the lesser known players who have either recorded for Windham Hill or they couldn't get their albums released on here, so they just, you know, put out, you know, various songs. But it's a really nice representation of kind of what the label does as a whole. We got a couple more here by Jackson Berkey. Cape May Preludes. I have a few of his solo albums. This is probably my personal favorite. Very much like the cover, and also mixed in with wind chimes, which he actually, you know, picked up expressly for the album. This is like a Sunday morning favorite to play. And another one by him, Atlantic Fantasy. I think I remember this being a little bit more in the classical vein, but again, these are all original compositions. I really like his stuff in general, and it was years before I heard him outside of Mannheim Steamroller themselves. See, next up, Egberto Gismonti, Alma. He's an incredible guitar player, but also an incredible piano player. This is a solo piano from 1987 to 1993. My only reservation about this is that it seemed to be recorded very quietly, so you really have to turn up the dynamics are a little hard to hear at times, but yeah, his playing is every bit as striking on piano as it is guitar, and yeah, he's a wonderful musician and composer. This is an amazing one here, Shalimar, Alan Hovhaness, great classical composer, modern classical composer, playing his own compositions here on Fortuna Records. Very Eastern inflected, both Middle and Far Eastern, as well as more traditional classical playing. Yeah, I remember this being just very soul-stirring, you know, kind of, you know, it's melancholy but not depressing, but also has some, you know, some interesting upbeat pieces too. I very much recommend it if you like, you know, more, again, sort of like devotional type music. I've got another one here that's piano with a little bit of additional keyboards, and one I've enjoyed for a long time. Morgan Fisher, Echoes of Lennon. Now this is you know, mostly solo piano and other keyboards interpreting John Lennon's pieces. Very slow renditions of them, but it's interesting listening for the melody, hearing how much slower it's played here, you know, alongside the original. I very much recommend it if you like, you know, solo keyboard music and Lennon's music. Absolutely beautiful. Another Windham Hill, Philip Aberg, High Plains. This is a different approach to what you would hear on Windham Hill than what George Winston does. This one at times is probably a little jazzier. Uses repetition in an interesting way. And another one I haven't heard in quite a while. It's from 1985. But very much like the cover, it's kind of a very expansive sort of thing. There's so many here, didn't realize. This one I have Colin Quigley to thank. He played this on his crash pad, and I wanted to seek it out right away. Debussy, played by Jacques Rouvier. Kind of runs the gamut of Debussy's compositions, going from his more light, ethereal pieces to very you know, kind of louder, more hard-driving songs. Lovely stuff. A really nice intro to Debussy's music if you want to hear kind of like the range of what he did as far as solo piano. Really nice. Richard Souther, another old favorite, someone who I did a video on some time back, and it's very humbling. I still get comments on that video. He has a lot of fans. A lot of people love his music, and you know, rightfully so. On this particular one, he does standards and covers, which normally he does original compositions. But very nice, very quiet, subdued album. A nice different side of him. And another one, this is the same person under his pseudonym, Douglas Trowbridge. Now these are original compositions and improvisations from the mid-'80s. And normally he does mixed keyboards, a lot of synthesizers, but there's another strictly solo piano here. Goes through a lot of different styles and moods. Now going into one of my all-time favorite artists. Again, I know Gary loves him, and a lot of people in the VC, are naturally big fans. Terry Riley, Harp of New Albion. This is one you could do a video on by itself. Just an incredible sprawling work, two CDs. Just Intonation, which is an alternate piano tuning, different from the equal tempered that we normally hear every day. Very exotic, Eastern inflected, just amazing stuff. Very hypnotic, and distinctive as only he is. Now another one by him, which is in a different vein. Terry Riley's Lisbon concert from 1995. This is marking his 60th birthday at the time, celebration. Now this is performed, he plays in equal temperament, the standard tuning that we're used to hearing. And this is probably the best place, as far as I've heard, to hear his jazz and his blues roots. Probably the most traditional sounding piano album he's made. Reworking some of his older pieces, but doing it in very much, his own distinctive hypnotic style. It's on a New Albion. Excellent, excellent album. This would be a good thing to start out with if you're maybe a little wary of the alternate tunings and you want to get into his piano music. It's a good place to start. I used to play this like crazy back in the late 90s. And now another artist, Keith Jarrett, Ritual. This one's actually Keith Jarrett's composition interpreted by Dennis Russell Davies, who's probably best known as a conductor to this day. He's worked with Philip Glass and others. But a very nice, soul-stirring, kind of dark, melancholy, maybe even bordering on pious at times, but very nice. Interesting hearing someone else interpret Keith's music. And again, another Jarrett from a solo concert, Paris concert from 1988. Probably not one of his better ones, but probably I'd say one that isn't shown or maybe represented as much. Plays his own pieces as well as the standard here. I remember this being kind of intensely Baroque sounding. And, another one I haven't played in quite a while, but another aspect of what he does. Now we're moving into another artist, but by way of Keith Jarrett. G.I. Gurdjieff, Sacred Hymns. Now Gurdjieff was, I believe, of Armenian Greek ancestry. He was a mystic and philosopher who also composed music along with a fellow named Thomas de Hartmann, who was Russian. And this was my first exposure to their music through Keith Jarrett many years ago. Again, very devotional, very melancholy. Not exactly minimalist, but very minimal, very sparse music, but complex at the same time. Very beautiful. Would definitely recommend if you like the more kind of stripped down kind of playing. Now there's a couple more versions here. Journey to Inaccessible Places by Ilan Sykrov. There's another version of some of the same music on Editions EG. A nice hearing another interpretation of it. Now, for me, the best one to hear is from the artist himself, Thomas de Hartmann, playing the piano music that they made together. Now, I'll go out on a limb here and say, I know there's a thread going around in which one of the questions would be one of your desert island albums. This would be one of them for sure. Not just for solo piano, but music in general. I couldn't say enough good things about this album. It's so beautiful, so soul-stirring and haunting. Just one of the best piano albums I think I have. Maybe the best. Just gorgeous. And it's a three CD set. And interspersed are snippets of interviews with D. Hartman, talking about his process and his relationship with Gurdjieff, and how they went about the music together. But this is just fantastic. Found it in a bookshop about almost 20 years ago, and it's still one of the tops. But yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough. Absolutely beautiful. And again, right from the source. Okay, I'm about halfway through the box here. Getting a little closer. Cécile Lecade performs Chopin. I like Chopin's music. It's really nice. Mostly shorter pieces. A couple longer ones here. Again, more kind of in the romantic tradition. Again, a nice combination of being technically proficient, but also very emotionally engaging. There's another old favorite here. Nights in the Gardens of Maine. Paul Sullivan, who's, I believe, from Maine, and he does a lot of albums with that theme. That was Maine. Another one that goes through a lot of styles and moods. Very jazzy, but also impressionistic. I think he's joined a little bit by, there's a little bit of percussion on here too, primarily all piano. Another one perfect for this time of year, just being outside, and yeah, really fun stuff, and pretty whimsical at times too. Really, really interesting. Another old favorite. Of course, Gary knows this one. Wolfgang Donner, solo piano. This is my introduction to Wolfgang Donner, actually, back around 95, 96. I think I might have even played this in I think one of my BookTube videos. But yeah, another one who's very distinctive, very unmistakable touch. The way he makes music flow. A great combination of jazz and classical influences. And some of his own pieces have become standards to a certain degree, like Pamukal, one of the last ones there, been covered by quite a few artists, from what I understand. Great stuff here. He's done quite a few solo things over the years. Oh, another Morgan Fisher here. Primarily piano with a little synthesizer. These are his original compositions. Peace in the Heart of the City. I really like the piece, third one, Space Between Cars. Analogous to kind of being in a traffic jam, and this is the music that would be like the antidote, to the stress you're feeling there. Excellent stuff. I just showed this and played it in the background in my record store day finds video. Absolutely loving this. Yeah, Book of Sounds by Hans Otte. Yeah, great kind of minimalist piano, very emotional, soul-stirring. Another highly recommended one on Cook label. Another one here by Liz Story, and this is among my all-time favorites too, as far as solo piano. Very, very beautiful, impressionistic. I can't listen to this one without, having it's hard to listen to this with having dry eyes the whole way through. It's very, very emotional, very beautiful, and just a wonderful flow all the way through. Yeah, highly recommend this one. This would be a good introduction to her, as much as anything else. Margie Adam, Naked Keys. This is one I've had for quite a while, and though I haven't listened to too recently. Very nice, again, very impressionistic, and a very small label, Pleiades Records. But another one that's really probably kind of in the mold of Liz Story. Kind of jazzy, and it goes through a lot of different styles. Getting there, getting close. Shifting gears quite a bit here. Time Zones by Charles Gale. He's probably best known as a jazz saxophonist. Plays saxophone and clarinet, but on here he's playing solo piano, and very interesting approach to it. Start off melodic and then kind of go off into kind of these further improvisations, kind of sprawling. Superficially, one could say it sounds like Cecil Taylor, although I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of cliche to say, but it is, it's a challenging lesson. You know, his playing is rather fractured, but he goes through a lot of different approaches here, and it's fascinating hearing this after hearing several albums of him just on saxophone. So, you know, neat to hear another side of him. Got a few classical ones here. John Cage, Early Piano Music by Herbert Henck. Now, of course, if you know his music, known for the prepared piano, where he puts found objects in between the strings to get different kind of sounds. But there's also stuff that reflects his interest in Eric Satie, so that's represented here as well. And yeah, pretty good introduction to his piano stuff in general. Now these are a couple albums here by the same artist, basically the same album, recorded I think about 30 years apart. Goldberg Variations by Glenn Gould from Bach. This is the later one from 1955, 1983, or 82. Really interesting hearing the two different approaches he takes over that 30-year span. You know, going as far as the pacing and his approach to the pieces. And he's someone I've been getting into lately. After knowing of him for so long, I hadn't really listened much, but yeah, I'd recommend getting into him in general. Let's see, Brenda Warren, Childhood Dreams. This is one I actually played out here not long ago. I was doing some stuff in the garden. And another one I had heard many years ago on Starstreams. Primarily solo piano with a little bit of light synthesizer at times. Pretty much all piano. Another one, very lilting, very reflective, and very much like the titles. Definitely recommend if you see this around. Getting close here. Another, let's see, Keith Tippett, Musician 3, August Air. I think I remember Chris showing this, Chris Kibler. Now he's another one who's often lumped into the Cecil Taylor school, which again I don't think is fair to him or Cecil. A very distinctive style, very percussive, goes into these incredibly long, unfurling improvisations, implying a lot of styles and approaches without, you know, kind of overtly stating them. Really incredible stuff. Incredible technique, but also like an emotional urgency, which is really, really powerful. Definitely recommended for that. Okay, winding down, getting really close here. You forget how many you have until you're going through them. Song of Hope by Bruce Stark. This is on the Hearts of Space label. He's kind of more of a jazzy approach to solo piano, kind of like Keith Jarrett. In fact, he talks about being very influenced by him. But this is another one that's kind of like very kind of airy and wistful. And Hearts of Space is probably known more for electronic stuff, but this is one of the few solo piano things, acoustic things on the label. Can't believe it took me so long to get to this artist. David Lanz, Heart Sounds. Another great, pretty well-known solo piano player. I believe this is his maybe first or second album. June 1983. Another one who goes through a lot of different styles and approaches. Very impressionistic. Similar to his label mate Michael Jones, only he tends to go more with shorter compositions and improvisations. But a real nice introduction to his music. Another person who needs no introduction here. David Brubeck. Plays and plays and plays. An early solo piano from 1957. I think this is a combination of originals, a couple originals, and the rest are standards. But neat hearing him outside of the context of his famed quartet. And yeah, always fun and pleasant to listen to. Michael Harrison from Ancient Worlds for harmonic piano. Very much in the mold of like what Terry Riley was doing with the Harp of New Albion, with alternate tunings. Again, also kind of along the lines of the Gurdjieff. Very devotional, very You know, very deep soul-stirring stuff. Another one I haven't listened to in quite a while, from New Albion. Another one from great label. Just a few more here. Mal Waldron on Steinway. He's another player, great jazz pianist. He's probably better known for duo albums with like Marion Brown or Steve Lacy. But it's a kind of early example of his solo piano. It's from the early 70s. And all original compositions here. Another very distinctive approach. The only downside to it is the sound is a little rough at times. It tends to clip sometimes when he hits the harder chords, but definitely worth hearing, you know, for another side and aspect to him. Suzanne Ciani, pianissimo. Someone who started out with synthesizers, moved more into melodic material and then solo piano, and now recently back into synthesizers. But this is when she was, you know, really at the height of her solo piano stuff. Interpreting her own earlier music, a lot of it on this one, which you normally heard on synthesizer. Very impressionistic, at times maybe even a little treacly, but still, it's still quite beautiful, and always nice to hear the various sides of what she's done over the years. Okay, two more. Cornelius Cardew, We Sing for the Future, performed by Frederick Rzewski. He's a composer who's probably better known for his avant-garde leanings, like with AMM, but this got into more traditional classical, I don't know, maybe even like Beethoven or someone, but also kind of like, again, thinking of like nursery rhyme sounding stuff at times, deceptively simple. But this is a style he had later got into. It was a little later in his career. But I really like the covers on these two. But this is very easy and accessible to get into, and I recommend it if you like those styles. And finally, the final one here, Misha Mengelberg, Impromptus. Another player that's very hard to categorize. He passed away recently, I think, in the last year or two. Jazz composer, performer, normally played in fairly large groups, but this is a solo outing here. Very whimsical, goes through a lot of different styles of jazz, a little bit of classical, even maybe folk music. He's Dutch, I believe, and yeah, very interesting. At times he sings and whistles along with the music. Again, very whimsical, very fun, but also challenging. So he's someone you might want to approach with caution if you're looking to get into solo piano stuff in general. So that's it. Now, I do have other solo piano stuff, but I just grabbed, you know, a couple handfuls of things just to show for now, and I probably have things that are more obvious to show, and maybe at some time in the future I'll get more into them. So I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching, and sorry if this was too long. Maybe, I don't know, maybe divide it up into the vinyl and the CD section. I don't know. I was thinking of doing it in 2 parts, but you know, you kind of get on a roll, especially with caffeine and everything this time of day. So yeah, there's a lot here to choose from, and yeah, there's so many different areas of solo piano music, and yeah, this barely scratches the surface of what's out there, of course, but I've enjoyed it for a while, and I hope some of you find some things of interest here. So I hope you're all well, and it's as nice where you're at as it is here. And, well, till next time, peace, love, and joy.